Hi, everybody. First things first, let me apologize if you can hear the background karaoke. It is Sunday afternoon, and I live in a largely Hispanic apartment complex, and my neighbors love to jam out, and it's a lot of fun, actually. I really don't mind. But apologies if it detracts from the audio of this, but so, what I wanted to do today is introduce you guys to some drumming, right? Some more drumming. So, I've been drumming. I've uploaded a few drumming videos, right? But I really haven't talked about me and my musical background. I've been drumming since the sixth grade. I joined the sixth grade band in my middle school and started playing percussion. Really got interested, right around the fourth or fifth grade, if I remember right. My mom tells me that she remembers when I was a kid, I would bang on pots and pans in the kitchen and, get the wooden spoons out and lay the pots out. I was like 2 or 3 years old. I don't remember doing this, but she says that happened. So it wasn't a shock to her when I told mom and dad that I wanted to play drums. But anyway, so I've been playing for a few years, through middle school and high school, largely rudimental. Okay, so I really got into the marching band drum corps thing. Absolutely wanted to march drum corps when I was in high school. That was my dream before going off to college, was to march drum corps. So I was a rudimentalist and tried out for a few drum corps, and my dream never materialized. It's actually one of the great regrets that I have. When I started in marching band, we had a really good drumline instructor, and the high school that I went to actually had a decent drumline. The first year I was there, we had 3 snares, 4 basses, 2 tenors. I was in the pit, so we had a pretty decent drumline. The very next year, my freshman year of high school, the band went through an entire organizational change, and half the drumline graduated and the other half quit. So I was pretty much the only one that was left. So I played by myself, basically, and I really didn't have a drum line or a instructor really breathing down my neck for a few years after that. And so I think that kind of hindered me a little bit. I would ram through the exercises. I was terribly disciplined, but I didn't have the added benefit of playing with other snare players and having that coach. Really until my junior year, a guy from the local university kind of took me in and worked with me on my solo and ensemble, things like that. But long story short, I tried out for Phantom Regiment 2 years in a row, tried out for Capital Regiment, and got invited back the second time at Phantom Regiment and got invited back the first time at Capital, but it just never panned out, and that is actually a pretty big regret of mine. But I still love the drum corps community, and you'll actually kind of see that in today's video. I give you that preamble because it's actually going to be somewhat important with the subject matter of this video. So I've always been into rock and roll music, metal. Had never been a terribly good metal drummer, right? So I really cut my teeth on bands like Dave Matthews and 311, growing up in the 90s, early 2000s. But always was listening to harder music, but always struggled to actually play it. And I got a double bass pedal my junior year of high school, and I had the rudimentary discipline, right? So cranking through rudiments and just playing through grids wasn't a problem. But what I didn't have with my left foot particularly, I'm right dominant. What I didn't have was the technique. Okay. And so it was a real struggle to actually develop any sort of speed or dexterity because I was lacking proper technique, and I never took lessons for double bass drum. And so this video is really geared toward the person that I was. Okay, when I was growing up, I didn't have the money to spend on high-end lessons. Okay, I basically bought all of my own drum equipment through working. I worked at a equestrian farm, worked mopping movie theaters, worked at a gas station, and really bought my own equipment. Mom and dad were completely supportive of all of my endeavors, and they would help me out when they could. When I was taking lessons my 8th grade year, they would give me allowance money so I could take the lessons. And they would buy sticks and stick bags and things like that as they could, but they didn't have the money to spend on the drums, right? So I paid for everything and didn't have the money for high-end lessons. And YouTube didn't exist back when I was in high school. So this video is really geared toward that person. Whatever stage of life you are, it's really geared for the drummer who is wanting to take the first steps in learning how to play the double bass drum. Okay, I am nowhere near an expert, but what I have been able to do over the past about half year or so, I have been able to start taking lessons, and I'll show you guys who I'm taking lessons from. Taking lessons from Ryan Van Poderian, formerly of the Devin Townsend Project, currently with a Monolith. He also does a lot of session work, clinics, and things like that. And he is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't ever checked out any of the Devin Townsend Project, I really, really encourage it. Great music, great musicians, the whole band. If you're into the harder things, and Monolith is a little bit harder than most of what Devin did. But Ryan is a superlative world-class drummer. And the things that we have been working on, I'm not going to give you any of his techniques or his curriculum. Okay, that is his proprietary information. But what I will say, the thing that he has done that I will tell you is helped me fix my technique with my left foot. Okay, and so it really clicked when we were kind of going through our first few lessons and talking about what I wanted to get out of lessons. And one of the things I mentioned was my left foot technique. I really wanted to get my left foot to the point where I was practicing appropriately, right? It doesn't matter how much you practice. If you're practicing the wrong way, it'll be very difficult to make any progress. And that's what I had done all through high school and my early 20s. And so I wasn't seeing any progress. With the snare, I could see progress, steady progress. I would pick up a solo for solo and ensemble or for marching band or whatever, and I could crank through a piece in a couple of days and have it memorized in a few days, and I could notice that I was getting incrementally better, every week. But with the double bass, it just wasn't happening that way. And so a lot of it was technique. I just didn't know how to practice appropriately. And so when we were discussing technique, and he talked about how you want your ankle to really just snap. You don't want your leg to push up and down. You don't want to use your hip flexors. You want to use minimal thigh muscles. You want to use your knee minimally. It's more or less all in your ankle and your calf muscles pulling your ankle up and down. And when I realized that, and then I just started to try and make sure my left foot was doing exactly what my right foot was doing technique-wise, that's when I've really started to settle in, and I've been able to see steady progress from that, right? I'm nowhere near where I want to be by any stretch of the imagination, but I am making incremental progress, and I am a much cleaner drummer than I was 6 months ago, was particularly with my double bass. And that is really rewarding, right? There's still songs that I would love to play that I can't play, but I can definitely tell the progress that I have made, okay? And that's the most important thing. And if you don't have timing, then whatever else you're doing is worthless as a drummer. Okay. So the very first thing you want to fix after you've got your technique is make sure you're just keeping that steady time. Okay. Any band leader, any guitarist, any bassist will say, I don't care if you can do all of the craziest fills in the world, if you can't groove and you can't keep that time when it's time to keep time. There are places for fills, there are places to be flashy, but if you can't keep the time when it's time to do that, when that's appropriate, then nobody's going to want to work with you. And if you can do that, even if you don't have all of the flashiness in your repertoire, you're still going to be a much more sought after musician than somebody who has the flash but doesn't have the time. So keeping time is one of the most important things to do. So with that, if you're not playing along to music, my first piece of advice is always play with a click. Okay, always play with a click track. Now, this particular video, I'm actually going to show you guys a couple of different things. One of which is how to use the website Noteflight. Okay, and or maybe not how to use like a tutorial on it, but how I have used it to create the exercises that I'm going to show you guys. Now, these are exercises I came up with. These are not Ryan's exercises. Again, first things first, on that note, I cannot stress enough, if you have the means and you really do desire to get to the next level on your drumming, find a qualified world-class teacher. Okay, somebody who has played in bands, played in sessions, sought after in the music industry, knows the people in the music industry, and is a world-class drummer. And Ryan fits that bill. So by all means, if you have the means, find that person. But I didn't at the time when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. And so, again, that's really who this video is geared towards. So number one is play with a click track when you're just running through your exercises. Play with a click track. If you can't keep time with your click track, then you won't be able to go to the next level. So you want to be able to internalize that timekeeping. Okay. And what I'm about to show you, I think, has a lot of value to it in that regard, because when you write music in some sort of electronic notation system like Noteflight, there's several others, and a lot of them are free or have, so many songs you can write before you have to start paying for them. But they have the playback feature, and so you can actually hear the rhythms in the music that you're playing or that you've written. And when you have a good enough computer that doesn't skip, it's not trying to process the notes and skips anything, then it playbacks very evenly. And in my opinion, this is going to be a really good exercise for the people really just starting out wanting to explore double bass. And so what this system does, what these exercises that I've done do, they allow you to hear every single beat that you're supposed to play. And you can play right along with it. And if you have the capability to record it, then you can record it, go back and listen to yourself and see where you're missing the individual beats. The reason being, if you just play with a click track and you're playing quarter notes, right? The click track is playing quarter notes. And you want to play 16th notes on the bass. Ideally, but what often happens when you're first getting your left foot going, it'll be jutted. It'll be like da 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 da, and it can be hard to really feel where it's wrong, because in your legs you can feel like you're just going 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, but the sound comes out like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. It can get a little bit wonky. So hearing each individual note that you're playing it, and then recording yourself matching it and seeing exactly where you're off, can be a really, really good tool to develop your muscle memory, right? And that's what drumming is at the end of the day, is muscle memory, right? So you're training your muscles to do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. And everybody who has reached the level of world-class drummer, that's what they've done. They have trained their arm and wrist muscles, their fingers, and their feet to do exactly what they want on command without having to really process it in their brain, because the memory is already there. Right? There's a saying in drumming, and I largely agree with it. It's not all the time true, but largely I agree with it. If you have to think, you're already behind, or you've already failed, right? You've already made a mistake. If you have to think about what you're going to do, you've already ticked, quote unquote, or lost time or whatever. So the whole point of building this muscle memory is getting to the point where you can just do it. If you need to play triplets with your feet, you can play triplets because it's in your feet. It's in there. Just like getting exercises in your hands, it gets in there. And so this whole video, the rest of the video is going through some exercises that I've written. Now, the first exercise you can actually see on the screen. It's a series of repeated measures, and you're doing eighth notes on the quarter notes on the hi-hat, and just 2 and 4 on the snare drum, right? Da, 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 da. These are your hands. So the whole part of starting double bass is make sure that your hands are doing the simple things, and so that way you can build the memory with your feet, and then you can add the complexity with your hands. And I'll actually be uploading some exercises to help you with that kind of dexterity over hopefully the next few weeks as I have time. But so the first video is the first exercise rather, doing quarter notes on the hi-hat, 2 and 4 on the snare drum, so dut, jut, dut, jut. And then your feet are going to alternate patterns. They're going to start with 4/8 notes, dut, 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 and then 2/8 note triplets, dut, 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 dut. Okay. Actually, I might be able to, yeah. So there you can see the whole exercise, right? Dut, 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 and then it goes into 16th notes. Dut, 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 and then it repeats. Okay, and as you can see, the first time through is at 60 BPM, and then it goes up to 70 BPM, and I've written the page so that it just increases by 10 BPM all the way up to 180. Okay, so I play the exercise up through 130, and then I stop at 140 because really that's about my threshold. Okay, to play through this particular exercise, 140 is about my threshold where I really kind of start to lose a little bit of timing and control. So that is my next goal, is to conquer this at 140. But I have it up through 180. Okay, so let me go ahead and preface this by saying that if you can go ahead and play this at 180, then this video is not for you. You've already gone past the point where this exercise is going to really do much good for you. Now let me say, if you can play this precisely at 180, okay, if you can play this precisely at 180, then this video is not for you. But if you're really wanting to start out and build your dexterity, then I'm going to play through my portion of the exercise, and then I'm going to upload just repeated times of each tempo in individual timestamps on this video. So you can actually go to the individual timestamp and just go through that exercise several times at a particular tempo. Okay, and this will really help. To me, this helps do a number of things. Number one, again, first and foremost, is timing. Right, making sure your quarter notes are right with the chinks of the hi-hat in the note flight sound generator. Dot, 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 and your snare drum is right with the snare drum in note flight. Ga, 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 and then it's just your feet. And one of the big struggles I've had, and one of the major things I'm working on in my own time outside of the exercises that I'm working through with Ryan, is getting my triplets down, because it is not intuitive for my body, the way I'm right-handed. I'm very right dominant, for my cymbal or hi-hat to be playing with my right hand, and then my left foot being playing the bass drum. So when I'm doing triplets, like da 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 da, that second triplet where it lands on the left foot, the beginning of the second triplet where it lands on the left foot, is very difficult for me to nail down very precisely. And so then just going through this da 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 has been very, very valuable in making sure that my left foot knows it's okay to hit that beat, and that my right hand knows that it's okay that my left foot is doing that. And so getting that, again, the muscle memory. One of the other major things, before we actually get into the exercises, one of the other major things that I will share with you that Ryan has given me that has also proven to be very valuable is this piece of advice. And that is, if you can't play it slow, okay, if you can't nail it at 60 BPM or 70 BPM, if you can't nail it that slow, then you need to work on that set of tempos, those lower tempos. Again, as a drummer, if you're going to play music, particularly with other musicians, being a drummer, your number one job is to keep time. And if those slow tempos are out of time, if there's any speeding up, which if you're playing to a click in the band, then that can help mitigate that. But you also want to make sure that you're trying to be dead on wherever you need to be. If you need to be right on the beat, or if you're maybe trying to play a little bit of a pocket groove and you need to be precisely behind the beat a specific amount, however you need to be there, you want to be there as consistently as possible, right? And that is what these slower tempos, on top of just getting your feet into that kind of muscle memory routine, is to really nail these slower tempos. And so that way you can really, really get them as precise as you can while you're also working on your other tempos. One last thing before we really get into the exercises is that you will typically find you have a happy place, what I call the happy place. So it can be really hard to play at slow tempos. Of course, it's challenging to play at the faster tempos. Most people have a natural area, range of tempos that they can play a lot of things relatively comfortable with. Even if they're not a very proficient double bass player, they can play at least 16th notes to some degree of precision in this range. For me, before I was taking lessons, it was naturally between 90 and 120. Okay, I could play a lot of music at 120 BPM. Once I got past that and up into the 130, 140 threshold, it became a little bit more challenging. For just straight 16th notes, my threshold is right around 140, 150 if I need to play them for any sustained amount of time. If I'm just doing a short da-da-da-da, then 160, 170, possibly 180 if I'm really on the money, right? But the point is not to get just as blazing fast as you can. Okay, that's what the 180, bumping this exercise up to 180, is designed to help you do. Is once you get that muscle memory and you really start working up, you can crank these tempos, 10 BPM at a time, or even if you need to, 5 BPM at a time. And that's the beautiful thing about No Flight. You can go in and adjust the tempo to whatever you want it to be. I actually don't know what the top end tempo is, and I don't know what the lowest end tempo is, but at least it'll crank up to probably 250, if not higher. Okay, so if you really want to get into the blazing speeds, but again, don't do that until the tempos below it are clean. Okay, and so that's not only the only exercise that I have in this video. A few of the other exercises I'll show you guys in this video are I play through this one, and a note about notation, right? So here we have and I don't have any snare and hi-hat through this exercise. This is just for your feet, okay? But it's 2/8 notes, or 2 sets of 8th notes, and then 2 sets of 16th notes, 2/8 notes, 2 sets of 16th notes, and then am I missing a measure? Yes, I am. I am missing a measure. There should be a measure of 4/8 notes in here. Hang on just a second. Let me see how this is going to play. Okay, yeah. So it put it in the audio, but it just cut it out visually. So let's see if we can actually reload this. Building page 2. There we go. Right. So you have 2 sets of 8th notes, 2 sets of 16th notes, 2 sets of 8th notes, 2 sets of 16th notes, a measure of 8th notes, a measure of 16th notes. Now the notation that I'm using this page for my own personal practice, the point that I want to get to, is the point where you have the line through your note. For those who aren't familiar with the term diddle, these are what's known as diddles, and these are where you play the same limb, right? If you're playing snare, this would be the a double beat, or a double beat with your left. So the first time through, the goal of the mastery of this exercise, I guess I should say, is to play everything through just straight alternating notes on your double bass. And then what I want to eventually get to is with this part to play right, right, left, left, 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 to start to get into the diddles and start to slowly develop a drum roll on the double bass effectively. That's not how I play it in the sample video. For the sample video, it's just straight through. Right, left, 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 right, left. But that is the goal eventually to get to. All right. The other exercise that I play here is this one. And this is a good exercise, again, for starting to develop dexterity. And so this combines 8th notes, 16th notes, and sextuplets, right? And so once again, this can really help with the getting your right hand and left foot to agree with one another, right? But this exercise also goes through with changing from 8th notes on the hi-hat the first time through the pattern to quarter notes on the ride the second time through the pattern, right? And then it repeats. So you go 8th notes on the hi-hat through the pattern, quarter notes on the ride through the pattern, and then repeat once again. Okay. So these are some basic exercises to help you start to get through things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload samples of me playing through these. Okay, and you can see my warts and all. There's a few times in there where I make a couple slight mistakes, so you can see, I'm definitely a work in progress. But then I'm going to upload these exercises at different tempos for you to play through, so that you can just repeat through them a few times at a specific tempo. And so I'm going to upload the first set all the way through as is, from 60 BPM up through 180 BPM, and then the other exercises incrementally from 90 up to 180. And so that way you can click in the description, go to the timestamp of which exercise you want, and the tempo that you want it at, and then you can just play through that a few times, and then either move on to the next exercise or bump up to the next tempo, whatever you would like to do. Okay, but hopefully this video really can give the person who was in my shoes a boost that you wouldn't otherwise have had, right? I would have loved if somebody would have been able to sit down and just go through something like this with me when I was 17 years old. And so this video is for the younger me, for anybody who is just starting out but isn't sure how to start practicing. And I wish you all the best of drumming. I hope you guys keep at it. Even though I'm not doing this professionally, it's a huge passion of mine. And maybe one day I will be professional. Who knows? But in the meantime, happy drumming, happy trails, and we will talk to you guys next time.